And what we're going to be talking about today, we've got Debra Killian with Close. She runs a business. We're going to get into what she's done on the back end. But there's been a common theme and a common takeaway probably for the last 12 months or so that I hear all the time, and it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to an individual LO, branch manager working anywhere, they're looking at how do I scale? How do I grow my team? I can't find any good people. If I'm looking at a small broker and they're looking at growing, I hear the exact same thing. I can't grow my team. I can't find anybody. Recruiting's expensive. If I'm talking to a larger DMB or like a larger company, they are having problems. I've talked to somebody at one of the nation's largest 10 lenders, right? They're looking at different ways. How do I scale? How do I bring people on? So it's a common problem for anybody out there. And it's something that in today's world, we keep seeing over and over. There's not a lack of crusty old loan officers that feel really entitled, that want a whole bunch of stuff, but people don't necessarily always want to hire them. So I've got Debra Killian here today. She does a lot of different things in the training space. She's been a broker. She's been a loan officer. I believe she worked for the NBA, helped develop like a lot of the programs and different things that they've had. Seasoned vet, very knowledgeable, and have personally used her with consulting clients to bring on never evers for companies that are crushing it today. But she took their sales force from a never ever all the way through and got them up producing on the sales floor. Debra, welcome.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for being here today. And like I said, we hit on a bunch of kind of things there that we're going to learn about today. But what I really want to get into is the problems that I addressed is everybody's looking for good loan officers, but nobody really has a good mechanism to bring them on, to onboard them. And if you're a loan officer that's actually still has to produce and do all those things, it's virtually impossible. And I know you've built a complete system that can help somebody from never ever. I want to hire Jimmy down the street, graduated from college, can't find a job. I want to hire him. And you've got a complete system that can help people from there all the way through. But before we kind of dive into that, and it's dirt, I think it's super cheap what you do. It's a fraction of even what it costs to hire a recruiter to find somebody for you. But prior to getting into that, can you just give us a quick backstory of who you are, why somebody might want to listen to you?
Sure. Thank you, John.
You are welcome.
I owned my own broker company for 28 years. And from the very, very beginning, coming from the accounting field, I'm married to a CPA and I was an accountant. We ran an accounting business before we got into the mortgage business. And I realized when I first got into origination at that time, which was in 94, that there wasn't any training. And I couldn't believe that coming from the accounting background, because I was thinking, this is like a whole complicated industry here and people aren't teaching anybody what to do. And so one of the things that I focused on from the beginning was realizing that were a lot of people, and still are a lot of people in the business, who really never got taught fundamentals or principles or concepts or anything separate from 20-hour pre-licensing, compliance stuff, all of that, just all of the things that everybody does on the origination side every single day that nobody really ever taught them. And so right from the very beginning, we decided we were going to hire brand new originators, and we did. And we locked them up for 2 weeks at a conference room and trained them before they could even talk to a customer on the phone, because I didn't want them talking to people without knowing what they were talking about. When you fast forward to today, and by the way, at that point, 1994, no computers, no internet, no social media, nothing. This was all manually, right? So I'm coming from an old school perspective, but I really think that old school perspective still applies today. I think the tools, the technology we have, the social media we have, those are all just helpful things to have, but does not take away from what's going on inside somebody's mind when they're originating a loan. So we developed our own program way back then. We had these big binders and paper stuff, files, on teaching originators how to originate from scratch. And found that to be it was very beneficial, because I didn't want the originators coming from other companies that had bad habits. They think they're trained, they're not trained. I asked them, who trained you? My manager. Who trained your manager? Who knows? There was no consistency. And I found that really odd coming from an accounting world where there was definite foundational principle things that you needed to know. So we ran a mortgage company for 28 years. I originated, we oversaw $1 billion in loans. I think we closed over 3,500 transactions. We opened a couple offices. At one point had 20 originators. I've worked on the wholesale side because I worked for World Savings and Loan. I worked for GMAC Ally Bank, and we sold direct on the correspondence in the correspondence space to Freddie Mac. So I have a perspective on kind of the whole industry from all sides of it. And I don't think there's many teachers out there, trainers in the mortgage space that have the hands-on, first-hand experience in originating, in managing and training people that can also write content and teach it. So I feel like there's a niche here for me. And quite honestly, I'm just really not great at the marketing thing and have a hard time getting the message out there. So that's my story.
Yeah, and you bring up a couple of things, right? So we've had a couple of people join on here, but really the problem that we're trying to solve here today is I want to hire never evers. I don't know how to do it. It's too much work. I can't bring all the parts together. And right, you're one of those pieces. And I actually think you brought up a couple of things. All right, I have a book here. This was a training manual that I have. This was something that we did at JG Wentworth. We were having problems hiring, that was like 2016, having problems there hiring people into our call centers. And so we ran an academy of new bankers. Those were some of the most loyal bankers that you had because they hadn't bounced around. They weren't out shopping their goods. They came in, you taught them a trade, you took them to their first 5-figure paycheck, you did those things, and they were extremely loyal. And this was something that we ran them through for months to get them all the way through there. And still to this day, there's a lot of them making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that went through that training. I go back to all of my days at what was Rock Financial that then became Quicken and then ultimately Rocket. And there again, a very standardized process. Everybody went through it. It didn't matter how seasoned you were, tenured, just to level set the expectation. The prerequisites that you have to get to college, a lot of people in our industry today don't have prerequisites. And even and it's so easy, right? Everybody wants to get somebody. There's all the flat fee models. They just want to bring somebody in to have them in there. There's so many companies that hire just to have a body. But sometimes you need the prerequisites just to be able to move forward. You need math, addition, subtraction to be able to do algebra. So I think that's one thing. And then also in today's world with AI and everything, people believe that I can put it into an AI bot and get the knowledge, and you can. But how do I practically, how do I take that and apply it? And It's something that, again, I talk to a lot of people that are looking at growing and scaling. We used to, in the mortgage space, we used to look for product knowledge. The person that understood all of the knowledge, like all of the guidelines, could read a tax return. They were a valuable commodity. That skill set means very little today, in that I can now have AI read my tax. I can just upload it and it will give me the income better than 99 out of 100 underwriters. So those skills have moved away, but still being able to have that foundational knowledge there. And if I was trying to scale a mortgage company today, I personally would be putting 80% of what is going to be my production in 6 to 12 months into hiring brand new people today, new to the industry, no baggage, no entitlement, no junk. And with the goal of getting them to be a solid producer in 6 to 12 months and not looking for an immediate ROI. That's just my take. Granted, I would never turn away somebody doing 30 million or whatever, but there would be a bogey. But there's a lot of people that, it's too much work to hire them. So let's just kind of step back. So you've got a lot of knowledge, you understand things. Let's just kind of start. If I'm thinking about hiring a new person and I've got a brand new, never evers, the suggestion I would make, hire the people and the caliber and the person that you want. And then, so hire a good person that you believe is going to work hard, morals, values, whatever that aligns with you. And then from there, the first step is they have to get through their SAFE requirement and actually pass SAFE. And a lot of people, there's 1,000 places I can go to get SAFE, but it's the basic prerequisite. Can you just kind of walk us through what your experience has been? And I know pass rates on SAFE are someplace in the 60s for the first time, 60% of people.
50s,
Oh.
mid to low 50s.
So mid to low 50s. I thought it was like, and just being able to write, it's a significant waste of time to bring somebody in to have most of them fail. Can you just kind of walk us through? I know you do and offer as part of your thing. When somebody comes in, they get the 20 hours, they get test prep. Can you just kind of walk us through what that looks like? We don't need to get granular or the exact steps, but what your philosophy is, what your belief system is on how do you get somebody from, I hired a good person, I now need to get them through the 20 hours, I need to get them to pass safe. What's kind of your mindset on that? How do you approach that? And I think your people pass like somewhere in the 80s, all people that go through. And I know you can't get the exact number because
We're not allowed to say, oh, 90% of our people pass or whatever, but I don't think I think there was one time in 7 years that somebody complained to me because they didn't pass the test the first time. We get more people that say they passed right away than not. So I'll leave that at there. The NMLS doesn't let us do that. So we have companies, small to mid-sized companies, I'll say, that when they're ready to hire somebody after having consulted with them on what we offer, we say to them, just introduce the person to us. We'll take it from there. We teach them, we direct them, I should say, here's what you need to do to get your license. So we've got the what do I need to do first steps. And then here's the 20-hour course. Do you need additional state testing? Here's a test prep. We have a 450 practice question test included in addition to the 20-hour course, which we give them. I will consult with them on an individual basis. Anybody that buys the course through us gets me with the course, so they get to talk to me, whatever they have questions, they want to run something by me, I'm always available, or I can't say always available, but I try to make myself available as often as I can. Once they get through that licensing piece,
so
we have the licensing and testing. Then what we do is say, okay, you need this foundational knowledge. So what we did was we put together a program called the First Year from Licensing to Mastery. So for about $1,000, less than $1,000, they get the 20-hour course, the pre-test, they get a practice test, the pre-origination best practices course. It gives them their first 6 to 8 months, let's say, of what do they need to do and know. And I think part of the issue is that, and you probably see it all the time. I see it on Facebook in these groups. People are given, they're hired, they're onboarded. Here's your cards, here's your email address. Go get a loan. And these people are out there struggling. And you have companies that have either they don't have the ability, the willingness, the budget to have a training department. When we have available resources and either people aren't aware of them or I'm not sure what, there's just this foundational knowledge. And I say, and people will always say to me when they talk to me, yeah, my boss said that they'll teach me once I go get the first loan. My question is, what are you saying to the customer to go get the first loan if you don't know what you're talking about? So I think there's a path that makes sense and works. It's just getting companies to recognize that and to say this is important. And unfortunately, John, and you probably know this, being in the business for 30 years or whatever, I've been in for 32 years, the focus is always on production, go get loans. And there's so little focus on what do you need to know to do that. One of the things that I think is different about our training is I don't just teach them what they need to know. I teach them how to think, because guidelines change all the time, lenders change all the time, the market changes all the time. It shouldn't matter what's really going on in the market today versus 6 months ago or 6 months from now. If you learn how to think about this business and what's important and why it's important, that's another thing we don't teach really well, is the why. We're always teaching people what and how. But I want them to know why and how to think about it, because then they can adapt to any environment. And I think that's really critical, especially when you've got these big refi markets when rates are low. You've got low purchase markets where people are trying to get business. You've got 90% of the agent originators out there chasing realtors when 95% of the realtors don't even close any business. So the numbers don't make sense, and people don't know how to, it's a bunch of bricks and they don't have the mortar. They don't have the plaster to pull it all together. We're the plaster.
Got it. So there, high level, a lot of stuff. We're going to pull it back in and go back to just the initial, right? So if you're out there and you're watching this, what I would tell you to do is you want to chunk this down into bits. And Deborah's a fantastic resource, but first off is the recruiting piece. You have to go out and find people that you want to work with, that you believe are going to work hard, high ethics, right? Like you don't want to hire the guy that's drunk every single night of the week and got 18 DUIs. He's only going to cause you problems, right? So like good quality people, that's step one. Step two, you got to get them through the 20 hours. You can go and Google 20 hours safe and find 50 places that you can go and get that done. And it doesn't have to be through Deborah. So look at these as incremental things. You can almost think of it as a frog. I like to use analogies. A frog occupies a lily pad and then jumps to the next lily pad. So if you're going to bring in never ever, you have to identify what's my hiring strategy? Who do I want? Where do I go after them? Step one. Step two, how am I going to get them through safe? And if you go to a place like Rocket Mortgage, they have each of these steps defined, right? They have a massive recruiting team, a massive training team, a massive next team. You as a small branch manager, broker owner, whatever it is, you're now all of those things. So how can you bring people into your ecosystem? So step one, identify the people. Step two, you got to get them through safe. So Deborah gave you there just her holistic, like beginning to end inside of their system. And I've been through it. There's training modules. So they have like just self-course, like self-paced learning. Then there's a whole lot of different questions, things to help them actually prep for safe. And she makes herself available as well to give them a holistic 360 approach. It's not, you're not just getting a module, you're getting all of those things. And it does allow you to, like, if any of us were to go back and take safe, most of us would pass, because we know how the questions are asked, what you have to answer. But there's a robust thing, and it's a standalone if you wanted it. She'll give you just the 20 hours in the test prep, but it's part of an overall solution. So you find the people, you bring them in, you hand them off to her for that portion. And what I would suggest, again, if I was going back and, right, we said this, you're never ever playbook to not lose your mind. I would go out and find high quality people. I would put them into this initial 20-hour test prep thing before I ever onboarded them as an employee. So I'm going to invest a little bit of money into them, and they're not my employee yet. I want them to go out there, do the test prep study, pass. And once they pass, then I'm going to that's when I'm going to bring them on board. I'm going to give them an email. I'm going to do all those things. But I'm willing to invest in the right people pre. So they're with her. Deborah takes them through. She can't say her pass rates. I know from other, like, it's way higher than the normal average. And maybe it's that people are a little more committed. I don't know. Maybe they study better. Maybe her course is better. I just know that they get the result they want. I'm not overly concerned with the why. So you get them through, they pass safe, and then you have that next step. You talked about it already, is that first year of origination. And it's 20 some modules. How many like individual, I know you've got it chunked down into individual little modules.
Yeah, there's, I want to say 19 modules. There's a
Okay.
final exam. There's a huge case study. There's quizzes. I have a book reading list. It's a comprehensive course, and it goes very deep into each topic because, again, writing a course from a perspective when you've originated lots of loans is very different than writing it from a compliance standpoint. So I teach originators from the originator perspective, which I think is different than a legal person, compliance people.
And on there, so let's say I hire I find my right person, we get them through safe, and now they're enrolled in this thing. As the person, if I paid for it, because I would pay for this for my hires, if I paid for it, do I get feedback from you, like how they're doing on trainings, classes? Do they know that they're passing the test? Is there some visibility on my end as to, is this person a hero or a zero?
I will provide whatever information I can, but to the person that's paying for it, there's a fine line there, John. So violating the person who's taking the courses, their line, so to speak. Where is their line versus the company line? But as long as the employee knows that the employer has information about how they're doing in the course, I talk to people all the time about that. I will tell them if I hear ethic issues, if I hear something that's just not going to connect at all with the material, give feedback on how they're doing, what areas are they having problems in. We can design supplemental training. We have a lot of stuff that we offer to help keep supporting the problems. What are the problems and what do we need to address? Because they're all different for different people, for different companies. What is it that's causing an issue for somebody passing the test? And so I have a test, it's called the mortgage test booster. And I go through a different 200 question test with them. And then I go through a 1 hour consultation with them one-on-one to say, okay, why are you thinking that that's the right answer? Let's get them on the right path. And I find that once they are able to think about things differently, they're able to get through that test.
Is that the safe test or is that your test for the?
That's a separate test. No, it's a separate test based on safe questions on the
Okay,
safe,
so
on the, yeah.
so back to getting, if you've got somebody struggling to get through safe, right? That was that second lily pad. There's additional help there to get off the second lily pad into the third lily pad, which is kind of like your first year of origination. And where I see different people struggling, and it doesn't matter who, like I've seen these struggles at large companies, is that a lot of it falls back on a branch manager, team leader. Somebody's got to get them through. You can just think of it as you have somebody running co-pilot in this first year, and I don't know the exact name of it. It's Deborah has something for somebody inside of their first year. It's the mortgage kind of basics. She'll walk your people all the way through. And I've done these modules myself. They are training modules, right? Their excitement is not like you're watching the Super Bowl, you're learning. So it's like the excitement levels at a learning phase, but they're not, you're getting really good info there. And this is something to augment your people as you're still training them, doing things on the floor. So it's in conjunction, but your responsibility still as a loan officer in most cases is still to produce, to originate loans. So it gets somebody there doing that with you. And I think that you can get through the first year is probably something like, again, if I was hiring never evers, I would structure my stuff for them to have them get through this over like a 6 to 8 week period. So I would have them accelerate the modules a lot, but they're in there, they're doing them, they're banging things out, they're applying it in their day to day. And I would probably also begin having them do like admin type work for me, entering loans into the system. If I'm using LendingPad, like putting loans in, running DU, submitting them to a broker, I would have these people that I've now hired. I brought them on after they passed safe. They're now my employee. I would find things to do that are keeping them busy and then augment them with what Deborah's doing to get them really ramped up inside of from the day they started. About the first 150 days is pretty intense learning. They're passing safe, they're doing their stuff. And then at that 150-day mark, you've got somebody that you can set on the floor. You could feel comfortable that they get a lead. They're not going to do something wrong. They're not going to quote 2% just because they don't know any better. Like they've got a good foundation to move forward. And then you can stick with them there inside of Deborah's group. You're here inside of the Mortgage Broker Builder. I've constantly posting things, different modules. Like you can find little tidbits to keep them learning and out of your hair.
The thing too about learning in this business particularly, I think, is maybe they took a Remen class or they took a Fannie class or they did something and there's all these different pieces that are out there. Again, where's the cement that's holding it all together? You have to be able to connect the dots in this business. You have to be able to see how this is related to the next thing, which is related. It's like you're talking about with the lily pads, how a loan going from beginning to end, all those pieces in between and how they connect. And so one of the things that I think is a problem in the industry is taking something here and something there and something, and not that any knowledge is bad, but how does the new person connect to all of that and connect the material, connect to it themselves, internalize it, and then how do they connect the material so that they can see a progression of something? You need a process in this business, right? This whole business is about process, and I don't think it's out there.
And I think, I know we've got a couple of people on here, let's say from Nexa, right? Nexa's got a really good, and a lot of the different broker places have different incentive bases for recruiting, bringing people in, like you get a downline. if you think about that, how many kids are graduating from college right now that aren't able to find a job? They have no idea what their next step is. And you go out and, again, right, like my business plan would be to hire and find those people. But let's say you do that and you create a mechanism there to attract young, good, hungry people that are looking for a new shot. Even if you get them to pay for the 20 hours themselves, right? You get them to pay the initial part. And then maybe you run some incentive, like you'll refund them the money back that they paid for the training upon closing their first loan. And you now start feeding people into an ecosystem where it's not just come work with me, I'm a star recruiter, but come work with me. I'm going to show you my 20 years of experience. We've got a proven system to walk you through from never ever to originating loans. And you bring people into that ecosystem. And right now I start getting, they're coming in, I'm getting paid as a branch manager. I'm teaching them a skill. They're bringing in their friends. I think that doing it this way is way easier to scale your team from, if you're sitting at 3 people today, to 30 than it is to try and go out and find 30 loan officers that are someplace else to come work for you. And I don't know how many of these people are going to hit home runs, but I can go back to my days at JG Wentworth or Rocket or wherever, and I can tell you that give some of those people a year, you've got, if you hire 10, 25% of them are going to be top producers or towards the high end. 25% on the bottom are going to be turds, and you're going to have to fire them inside of 6 months. And then you'll get a bunch of people that are mediocre in the middle. But you keep running that enough, you'll start really gaining some steam on your team. And the whole program that Deborah has right now, it's like $1,300. We've got something, I'll include a link. It's like, we've got it just under $1,000 if you're coming back through here. And it's and Deborah, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Can I share my screen, John, and just give you a picture real quick?
Sure.
That's all right.
Yep. So it's the 20 hours, it's the test prep, it's the first year. You get all of those things in what she's offering. It's under $1,000. And you can also put people into the mortgage broker builder. And there's a bunch of stuff. I'm constantly every week posting scripts and different things. Put them in there. That's part's completely free. So for less than $1,000, you can get a never ever, some basic skill set above and beyond where most people are putting them. I'm just seeing your backdrop.
You can see it now?
I'm just seeing moon, sun, water, and mountains. There we go.
You got me now?
I do.
Okay. This is the origination best practices. This is the post-licensing stuff. This is after the 20 hours safe. And what you'll see here is we go through 19 sections. There's lessons, 18 different lessons, right? What originators need to know, what to expect, how they deliver, what they deliver, the history, like where are we? Why did we get to where we are? Just having some familiarity with the overall industry. We go through appraisals. We go to how do you strengthen the relationships with everybody that you're dealing with, and how do you use those relationships to leverage more relationships? The 10 best questions that people aren't asking before they take an application. Are they offering price or advice? Do they understand the difference in pricing models, and where's the sweet spot on a rate sheet? How to take the application, reviewing a credit report, not just looking at the FICO score, all the terminology, reading tax returns, calculating income, all the different products that are available. How do you actually advise people? When is the refi make sense and when doesn't it make sense? How to turn in, and this is the key piece to this whole program, a conditionless file. So I taught 143 real estate agents last week a CE class on why pre-approvals fall apart. And they were shocked at the amount of documentation that is required, because I went through every section of the 1003 and all the information that all the documentation needed. That this is where people get nickeled and dimed to death, where reputations get lost, where your relationships get burned, a lot of problems there. How to document it, I go through the disclosures, how to structure the file, and then there's assessments, quizzes, case studies to make sure that they're getting it. So that's just the overview of the origination best practices. And that is the piece that I think is where people fall apart. They go out, they get the 20 hours, they pass the test, and they go, now what? And the boss says, go get a loan and then we'll have somebody help you figure it out. that is a backwards way to operate as far as I'm concerned, but that's just my opinion.
I think that it's super valid. And you do learn way more through osmosis than you will. If you want to stop on the screen share too, we all learn way more through osmosis. And getting your first loan is a great way to learn the ropes. How do I submit something? What do I look at? And it's awesome. But if you want people to get more first loans faster, a really key metric that I always looked at with salespeople and just across the board is how long from the day you bring them on to their first till they make you the first dollar. That's an indication of how well you're doing on a training side. The same if I'm hiring AEs. How quickly does an AE sign on a new partner until they submit their first deal? You always have that time lag. And anything that you can do to accelerate that, a lot of times when you bring somebody in, they don't feel confident when they get on the phone because they don't have the fundamental knowledge. And we as people want probably one thing more than anything is just a little bit of certainty. And we don't want to sound like an ass, right? And when you don't know what you're talking about, you're fearful that you're going to sound dumb and you don't want the uncertainty of sounding dumb. So you don't make as many phone calls. You don't do that. And just walking somebody through something like this gives them that fundamental knowledge to feel a little bit more confident moving forward.
So one of the things that I tell people is you can't have confidence without competence, right? The confidence comes from that competence. When you feel like all of a sudden it clicks and you know what you're talking about, the whole thing turns upside down. And now you've got a way to aggressively, in a professional way, tackle the business that you didn't have when you didn't have that competence.
Yeah, 100%. And I have a 4-digit NMLS, so I'm in the world of, hey, we'll figure it out, just bring it in, we'll figure it out. I can figure out how to get it closed.
Figure this out. Is yours lower than mine, your NMLS number?
Yeah, I don't know. It's 6399.
I'm 7657,
yes,
so you got me beat.
I got you. But it doesn't, like, figuring it out works fine for me. And because I can go in there and do that, but you have to understand as you bring in ever somebody, especially younger generations, they've been accustomed to having more information. Like they go to YouTube. When I wanted to fix something as a kid, you just got your dad's wrenches out and you started taking stuff apart. And then you had to wait for him to come home to work to put your bike back together. Now they have YouTube, right? There, people are used to getting more information and they require it in order to move forward. So they'll sit there paralyzed. So this gives them all that. So just my takeaway here, and you can go and I will put a link someplace in here of what kind of the whole package is and where you find Deborah and all that. But if you're looking at hiring never evers, here I'm going to walk you through my blueprint to do this. And it's going to not take you a ton of time. It's not going to cost a ton of money. And I think that it works really well and would be exactly how I would scale a mortgage business if I was going to do. I would spend some time trying to find and recruit really good people. If you run ads on Indeed or any of those places, and you run a mortgage job, what you get is a bunch of people that they're not licensed. They will fill out your stuff. They want your mortgage job. They're just not licensed. Run an ad on Indeed. You will find a bunch of people that are willing to take this position. You then find and identify good people that you want to work with. Whatever that is, whatever your criteria is, people that you're going to work well with and can ultimately make their life better. You move them from there. Get them into a 20-hour course. There's a lot of 20-hour courses. I think that Deborah's works really well in that they're going to have her from the beginning all the way through the end. And so you get that they're more familiar with it. So I think that works way better than going out and doing whatever. Lots of people do that and they fail. Bring on the 20 hours, get the test prep, get them through safe. Once you're at that point, you onboard them. You actually make them an employee at that point, and you bring them in and you move them into her program for their first year. You accelerate that timeline down, and then I would also find things to keep them busy internally. Maybe they're doing outreach, they're doing different things, right? You keep them busy internally doing work for you. They could be calling people in your CRM. Like there's a lot of things that you can do there. You get them through that initial thing, and then they have some point at which you are desking the deals with them. You're walking them through, you're doing the calls, you're like helping them with the sales things. But I believe over a 150-day window, you can get somebody from never ever to having somebody sitting on your sales floor that can produce right away. They don't understand all the lead gen and those kind of things, but you can get them the basic foundation of what did you say? Competence equals confidence.
Competence equals competence.
You can
You need
get,
the competence to have the competence.
you can get that basic foundational knowledge with a lot less headaches, scars, learning by just bringing something on. And like I said, that Deborah's got the whole thing bundled for anybody that's coming through here. It's like less than $1,000. They get all that. You also give them the anti-money laundering and a couple other things, don't they? There's some other add-ons here. It's not going to sell the program or not, but there are extra things that she has in there. And really, my suggestion would be, and Deborah, you can correct me if this is not the best way, but we'll have a link. Fill that out if you want to do something. And then if you want to get on a quick call with her about coming up with a scaling roadmap, hey, I'd like to hire 5 people over the next 6 months, and get with her because she's done that as well. Like, here's what it looks like. And if you do work at one of those places where you get paid incentives to recruit, like, this is a great way. Maybe it's 5 recruits a year that you bring in this way. It's easier than trying to go out and recruit some of these old stale people. They've got product knowledge from 2007. They don't even understand what's going on today. They can't sell their way out of a paper bag. Maybe there's a better way of doing it. And I don't know if anybody has any questions.
I'm sorry. The other thing I want to just mention, John, is so we also have this 2-day workshop coming up. It's a live workshop in Fort Lauderdale on March 2nd and 3rd. And that's going to be for after that first year, that struggling person from year 2 to 3 to 4, where they're familiar with stuff, but they still don't really have it all together, and fine tuning it. We don't do terminology and basic stuff because they should be beyond that. But this 2-day workshop is going to be very in-depth, and they're going to walk away with a lot. And again, I can't stress enough how to think about everything. How do you use a loan estimate to gain the loyalty of your customer? Simple things that nobody's doing and nobody's teaching.
Yeah, I do a lot. And right inside of our mortgage broker builder community, I have a belief that there's a 3-legged stool. You have skills, you have a sales component of that, like a how-to, and then you have systems. Our industry is great at teaching the skill. And I like to use a Johnny Cash analogy. Right now, anybody on this call or anybody listening, I can teach you all Johnny Cash. I can give you the skill required. I can teach you all Johnny Cash because it's about 5 or 6 different chords. So you need to know 5 or 6 different places to put your fingers and a few different strum patterns, right? Down, up. That's pretty easy. And I can send you the PDFs for the words. I just gave you the skill. You now know what to do. But without that, so I then have the sales part is the how. In order to actually pay Johnny Cash, I need to tell you, no, you got to press that a little bit more. I need some coaching there of the sales part. I call it sales, but it's the what to actually do. It's the how to do it. You got to do it. You just have to get in there and, right, run through burning ring of fire 4,000 times. ADE, ADE, burning ring of fire. And then beyond that, if you really want to get good, you need to set some kind of system in place to where I'm going to practice for 15 minutes a day. I put it in my calendar, and I got a watch that zaps me if I go to bed without playing guitar. So I need a system there. So I need to have the skill, I need to have the how-to or the sales component, and then I need a system. Without that, you can't do it. And I believe that if you're going to bring on never evers, make sure that they get the skill. They've got some kind of systems in place to practice, to get accountability, to know what's going on. And then you need to have somebody there that's actually walking them through that transfer of here's the words to here's how you actually sing it and play it. Without all 3 pieces, you can't have a chair can't stand on 2 legs. Your new people that come in also can't. But if anybody needs help with those kind of things, and right, we have things like a Fin Toolbox and different apps and different things, and how do you reach out to agents and how do you make it all work? It's all inside of the same type of ecosystem. You got to have all of those parts. They have to all be working together in our industry just as a whole. Very rarely does anybody put all 3 chunks together, and that's why people spend money on stuff that doesn't work. They take a test, they never pass because nobody held them accountable. So it's all out there. If anybody is looking at scaling their business, Deborah is a fantastic person to use. Like I said, I've had consulting clients that I gave over to her. She trained their bankers. I got one company that I can think of in particular. They had no sales. These people are averaging like 15 to 20 closings per person. That's not like they have awesome leads. They have a cool business model, but like she helped them get all of that stuff up running in their basic foundational knowledge to where they weren't spending hours trying to teach loan officers. They were spending hours marketing, bringing in new leads, and the loan officer was taken care of. So this is great. I think that you do a fantastic job. You said it in the beginning. You're not a great marketer. You're a great teacher. So if you want a great teacher, she's your gal. If you want a great marketer that's going to trick you into buying something that you don't need for your people you're never going to hire, there's a lot of those people out there as well. So I would go for her. I don't know where she's going to be on this screen, but
Thank you, John.
it's great. You guys do a good job. They've got a button-up system, and if you are looking, it's a great spot. Anybody has questions for me, you know where to find me. We'll include all of Deborah's links out there, and you're all over the place too. Facebook, LinkedIn. Where is the best place for somebody to find you if they're just listening? They don't want to click a link.
They don't want to click a
Facebook?
link,
Yeah, like if
Facebook, or they could just email me. Deb@close.online. We could put that up on the screen.
I will have that in the notes. Like I said, you can find her on Facebook. She does post all the time there. If you want to sniff around and check her out beforehand, I know that's what I like to do. Before I ever sign up for somebody, I got to go see their social, see what they're all about. You can find her out there. Hey, I appreciate everybody that's here. Thank you for your time. Any questions on scaling for me, reach out. Deborah, I'll give you the links, and make 2026 an awesome year.
Thanks so
thank
much,
you all.
John, and thank you everybody else for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
You too.